Ladies and gentlemen, and I call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners April 10th business meeting. Mr. Krupp, our county administrator, will do the roll.
All righty. Commissioner Bernard. Here. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Chair Ludlow.
Here, would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first order of agenda is public hearing. Mr. Krupp?
Citizen communication.
Pardon me? Citizen. Oh, excuse me. I've got to keep track of my things here. We have citizens communication, and we have several cards up here. I will call you up in twos, and they will be initially Steve Bates and Karen Bowerman.
Ladies first.
Okay. Whenever you're ready. No, this is citizen communication.
Either one of you.
My name is Karen Bowerman. I am a resident of Clackamas County and come to you today as simply a concerned citizen of the county after reflecting on content of a Position 2 debate, which was with me and held on March 22nd, 2014. Commissioner Savas said 3 times during that debate within the course of an hour that $5 million is not properly accounted for by Clackamas County Budget General Fund. And this, he said, is a reason for his voting against the 2013-14 budget. Any concerned citizen would find this charge to be quite distressing, as do I. First, he said, I'm also working to clear up fiscal matters and discrepancies within the county. I've not had enough support to complete that either. For example, $5 million of the general fund money has not been properly accounted for. And then later, there is a belief on the commission that all those dollars are accounted for, but they're not. There's an unexplained $5 million expenditure that still hasn't been explained. And then a third time, claims of not voting for the budget about me. Well, I think mishandling $5 million, I think that's a reasonable reason. So whereas the charge of mishandling of any amount of taxpayer money is not to be taken lightly, these are questions for the board. Number one, what was the motion that was made by Commissioner Savas to clear up the $5 million discrepancy for which he did not receive enough support? And number two, there is a serious charge against someone here or some county entity regarding $5 million. Is that against staff or is it against other commissioners? Are these allegations criminal in nature? Does the county attorney believe this to be a legal matter? What is the problem that let the $5 million discrepancy that Mr. Savas noted to be the sole vote against the 2013 budget as he was? And has this mishandling maybe been going on for 3 years, because he has a 3-year history, in fact, of voting against the general fund budget? He was the sole negative vote in 2012 and in 2011. So simply put, the public has a right to know about alleged mishandling of $5 million of taxpayer funds. I understand that County Administrator Krupp is a very adept individual, and as a citizen, what is going on? I think that needs to be answered.
Well, I don't see any lights. I don't see any lights up here, so, I mean, 5 million is a lot. Mr. Krupp, remember, as our county administrator, he just got here kind of, it's been 7 months now or something like that, Mr. Krupp?
Almost 7 months, yes.
So, you know, we at the budget stage, remember there are 5 lay people, citizens on our budget committee and 5 commissioners. I don't recall a motion to recover, to find, to explain any $5 million that was lost or certainly unaccounted for. I believe our county and their staff and our staff take great care with the budget, and for goodness sakes, if you ever look at our budget document, 900 pages, every line is spelled out. So I have no idea what a $5 million discrepancy, unexplained, or mishandling is. Mr. Krupp, are you aware of any allegation where we have $5 million missing from our budget?
I'm not familiar with the specifics of a $5 million allegation, so if there's more information to be shared, I'd be happy then to follow up and then inform the board what I learned. So,
I think it's a request by a citizen, so if we could perhaps address that, get back. Mr. Savas.
Well, Mr. Krupp recalls the transactions that were made with the Parks District, one for $2 million, one for $3.2, and with an excess of $5 million in total that I have turned over to the treasurer to be looked at. So there was no motion. There was a request, an executive session where votes can't be taken, so no motion can be made. I made the request that that be properly reported and accounted for. It was on the January 2013 former administrator's list of issues to contend with, and it was not properly handled, reported, and corrected in the budget for 2013.
Mr. Bernard.
Well, it's not that the money is missing or not accounted for. It was improperly, it was a loan to the Parks District according to a business meeting we had, but it was never properly registered as a loan. So they basically, it was a gift to the Parks District for $5 million.
Commissioner Schrader.
Actually, one of the reasons I support Commissioner Savas's idea to maybe work with the treasurers and have an independent auditor here in the county is so when these kinds of questions come up, that we're proactive with them as opposed to being reactive with them. So I think that's a solution. I think what we're reacting to is again, was it a loan? Was it just money that we were giving to them from the general fund as a priority decision? And we need to get ahead of the curve. And for example, the other issue we're dealing with is our healthcare clinics and getting ahead of the curve with how those dollars are managed. And that's good public management, not to be reactive, but to be proactive. So I, in the budget cycle this next go-around, think that would be a very, very good thing to do. I also want to remind people, Commissioner Stoa never voted for a budget, and I served with him for over 6 years. And he was, the reason I appreciated that was he always had his reasons, and he was delving into detail, and a good portion of the time, Commissioner Kenner and I had to carry that forward. But it was always good to have that diversity on the board of somebody saying something different and looking at it from a different way. That's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing. And thank you, Commissioner Savas, for doing that. And I really appreciate all my commissioners on the board. We had a lot of fun last night at our town hall. It was one of the best we've had, and we bring a diversity of opinions here. And Tootie, I love you to death because you are just so colorful. You just crack me up. So anyway, thank you, Commissioner Savas, for your work.
Yeah, just the other correction I make is I don't think I use the word sole reason. So just to clarify, I think I articulated a number of reasons in June when we approved some of the budgets. So to not recognize that some budgets have been approved where I thought everything was fine, and then some budgets where I felt uncomfortable with the lack of accounting in this particular one, for example, and other reasons. So it's really important that in the budget process that when we spend discretionary general fund dollars and we do these backfills of departments that have been dedicated, funding's been dedicated from grants, we backfill those with property tax dollars, that somehow those best align with the priorities of our citizens. And I've identified $4.4 million, for example, that can be spent on roads, and I thought that perhaps if some of that, which I expressly tried to do on May 28th in the budget meeting, I would encourage people to listen to the tapes of those days, maybe even the people there speaking here today. Just listen to the tapes of May 28th, 2013. I think it'll be invaluable to get some insight into what's going on. So, you know, we have to clear these things up right away. I, too, have proposed, or I initially proposed the idea of an internal independent auditor that be housed in the treasurer's office, who's a separate elected official, to take care of these kinds of things so that I can have a means to report it. It's unfair when those are used against anyone, and I don't think any of my claims were pointed towards any staff people or elected officials at all. It was I was simply asking, and I just reckoned back to January of 2013 when allegations were made against a former administrator that proved out to be false. So I took those allegations and I turned that over to the Department of Justice. So when I hear of a discrepancy, I'm going to do my best to report it, and I've done that in 2 cases.
Mr. Krupp?
Well, I appreciate the exchange of dialogue because the $5 million in and of itself was a bit out of context for me. Now I understand that what we're talking about is the exchange of funds that took place between the county general fund and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. And what I understand, this goes back some time in history, is that there was a $3 million appropriation from the general fund to the Parks District to fund the support of the North Clackamas Park in the Milwaukee area. That was done, and that was specifically done as a general fund contribution. There's nothing in the record that would assert or imply that that particular contribution from the general fund to the Parks District was intended as a loan. The matter that Mr. Bernard spoke with involves about a $2 million appropriation that was made from the general fund to the North Clackamas Parks District that was in support of the Hoodview Park. And in that case, it was originally represented that that was going to be a loan from the general fund to the Parks District instead of a direct grant from the general fund. What did not take place at the time, the documentation does not show that that particular transaction was memorialized as a loan and instead was booked as a simple general fund transfer. And so there had never been any particular follow-up to memorialize that as a loan, which, as I understand, was people's understanding at the time as to how the transaction was going to get taken place.
Commissioner Bernard?
Yeah, and that's it, and it's the $2 million. That occurred before we were here,
Right.
But at one meeting, a question came up about it, and somebody answered I asked the question, was it a loan? Somebody answered it was a loan, but it wasn't actually a loan. And so there was some confusion on whether it was a loan or it was a gift to the Parks District. But the money wasn't missing or misappropriated. That was a decision made before we were here. And I don't think it wasn't finalized while any of us were here, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just also want to mention to folks that we're working very hard on a strategic plan, and we had a really good meeting with that. And as we move through these issues, we're really moving to performance-based budgeting, and that is really having tangible outcomes that are measurable as we prioritize what we want to do as a commission. That's kind of a new shift for us. It's our staff telling us what they think are priorities. It's us from what we're hearing from citizens, balancing from what they're hearing in their priorities. And then we get together and we say, well, how do we say that? And how do we measure success? And it's not just outcomes, like if somebody's in an alcohol dependency program of some kind, and I'm just saying this hypothetically, it isn't the fact that you have 200 people going through it. The measurement is, do you have 200 people who are alcohol and substance abuse free? And human services in particular is kind of hard to measure sometimes, because those are it's not just outcome, it's like what's the result and what's the actual change. So we're working on that very, very hard. And I think we managed the budget very well. There's no misappropriation as much as we need to, I think, get proactive with the accounting so we can be. This is a large organization. It's $1 billion organization. And if you really look at the history of how this county has operated fiscally, we've done very well. We were one of the counties that is fiscally solvent. We've met our aspirational goals with both our contingency funds and reserves. And that's amazing. We have other counties in the state that are going bankrupt, okay? We have managed things very tightly, but we can do better. And as far as the ball field goes, the outcome of that was it is a beautiful facility used by the school district in the parks, and it provides softball, baseball, active recreation for children in this community and for adults. And I know, should we have loaned or whatever $2 million, if you go to the park and look at it, the outcome is a beautiful recreation facility that adds value not just to that area but to the entire county. So, I think we're doing very well, commissioners, and I enjoy serving with you.
Let me wrap this up and get back to your question. There is no discrepancy. There's no unexplained. There's no mishandling. This $5 million was not discussed at the last budget meetings and hearings because it was an executive session. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal what happened in the executive session, which has been pretty much explained by Mr. Krupp. There was a series of errors where the bleed over occurred of $5 million. And Commissioner Bernard said, and he's on record as saying he thought it was a loan, and it's certainly not incumbent upon him to verify that. We thought it was a loan. It was improperly handled. Let's face it. So what we got to do is better job of accounting and ledgering the fact of whether it's a loan or not. Now remember, please, that several of the commissioners up here feel very strongly that NCPRD needs to be autonomous. When we have $5 million of general fund going over NCPRD, they are not standing alone. They're being helped, and that's all of Clackamas County's money. I feel very strongly that they need to have their own voice, they need to control their own destiny, and the county has to separate from that for fear, if nothing else, of losing another $5 million. Now, I say losing. This was all explained to us in executive session. We have come to terms with the mistakes and the fact that it wasn't ledgered, and we live on. But this is not a current issue. This is way in the past, and it is not, I emphasize again, a discrepancy, unexplained because it was explained to us, or in the the mishandling may be, but it's moot. This money will not be paid back to the general fund, okay? I hope that synopsizes it good enough. Mr. Bates.
Thank you, Chair Ludlow. Commissioners, my name is Steve Bates. I'm a proud resident of Boring, Oregon. We are currently contemplating or anticipating the arrival of a journalist from BBC Scotland next Wednesday. He's coming to document Boring and our relationship with Boring, or rather Dole, Scotland. But that's beside the point. I'm here on two important matters. First one being, last Thursday, after I left this meeting, I went and had lunch, and then I went back to my office, and waiting for me was a copy of a letter sent by Mr. Bernard. This letter is a fundraising letter, and this letter also disparages two commissioners as well as myself. This is signed by Jim Bernard, Clackamas County Commissioner. Clackamas County Commissioners should not be sending out lies and innuendos to anybody especially when it disparages constituents and fellow commissioners. And I wanted to make that part of the record. It was unbecoming of a sitting commissioner to do such a thing. With that, I'd like to address the conversation that was occurred last Thursday. Commissioner Bernard and Commissioner Savas were talking about business licenses. We do not have a business license system in Clackamas County, nor do we need one. That's my opinion. They say that they want to have a business license or some sort of registry so that we know what kind of businesses we have in Clackamas County. The state has databases. The Oregon Fire Marshal's Office collects data concerning chemicals in businesses. Commissioner Bernard referenced that last week, suggesting that he needed to know who had chemicals. Well, the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office has that data. The Secretary of State's office has a very large database of every corporation in the state and every business in the state, and they can provide you with Clackamas County information. The people in Boring actually inventoried the businesses in Boring based upon the Secretary of State's database. The Department of Labor has a database that can give you information about businesses as well as the Department of Revenue. Why duplicate databases? Data costs money. It costs money to collect, it costs money to store, and it costs money to sort. How would you pay for this? With another fee? But the other thing is the businesses would have to fill out another form for no real reason. And with that, my time is expiring. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next two are Les Poole and Justin Gombos.
Mr. Chair, while those folks are coming up, I just want to just clarify that as a reporter myself, that the unfortunate thing that, and I've talked to the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office in the past about trying to get illegitimate businesses identified who are not part of the system. And it's voluntary reporting. The fire marshal has to find these businesses, and the illegitimate businesses don't have to report. So consequently, what happens is that businesses that were illegally doing things with chemicals are not found until after the fact. And if there was a no-cost, no-fee business license, I think it would better serve our community.
Thank you. Either one of you.
Good morning, Les Poole, Gladstone. If you go back a year and a half ago, you'll see Richard Langdon and I down here. Maybe it's been longer. And you'll see us being told that the commission doesn't answer questions and that at 3 minutes and 1 second, your time is up. Things are different here. And regardless of who you're supporting for commissioner, things are getting better. We got a ways to go, folks, but things are getting better. I appreciate that Mr. Krupp seems to be objective and engaged with us. And amongst all of the, what I perceive to be gotcha games going on, and gotcha, I mean campaigning here at the microphone. I assure you I can find things about all of you, and I could come up here every week and spend 3 minutes playing gotcha. And what it does is it takes away from how things are getting better here. Gotcha, didn't I? Outreach-wise, I hope the county keeps working on improving the website, the way you're reaching us. People that are attending CPO meetings and involved in CPOs, they sometimes don't see the whole picture. We got a CPO in Oak Lodge, Oak Grove. I lived there 20 years. God bless the 30 people that are involved, but there's 30,000 people that they're supposedly representing. So who's on those little CPOs and boards can be a good thing, an okay thing, or sometimes very troubling. Last thing I wanted to say is it's a critical time. We're in trouble. This country is in trouble, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my time giving you a speech that you can hear on TV. But we're in real trouble. And the county is continuing to look at ways of saving money. Sending the Parks District out on its own, if it loses your funding or your contribution, which I don't believe is money that's lost, you take that money away. You take the county funding away from the Parks District, from what understanding, and it stands alone, or is it going to be something that is going to be a big change? The reason I'm asking that is, and I don't expect an answer this minute, but that's one of those issues that could get contentious. You could get a bunch of misinformation, a bunch of confusion going on. So that's a perfect example of something that needs to be on the website. On the website, something that says, here's what we're doing, like the road fee. Otherwise, people start jumping to conclusion and they start playing gotcha. Thank you.
Real quickly, we all know that there's a county park system. We know that there's an NCPRD. It's an area designed to cover Happy Valley, Milwaukee, Oak Grove, lots of unincorporated areas. Now, they have that NCPRD, which we wear separate hats and are the board, although we have a district advisory board that are very active. But that money, I think we're at 52 cents per thousand in there that totally supports the NCPRD. So when you say county money taken from them, they got their own money passed by the voters. Now, there's a master plan coming out, as you know, that's been out there for some time. And we are talking about removing ourselves from it as far as jurisdiction, but not any money that they're currently entitled to. The melt over of $5 million is of grave concern to us. And like Jim said, a lot of this happened before any of us were here. But what we're talking about is to give them their separate representation and certainly not take away the 52 cents per thousand they're already due. Okay, that's their money. So just want to make sure you know that we're not shaking the thing up and taking away any money. There was no other county money going into the NCPRD except for those two rather large gifts, as Commissioner Bernard said, which, again, there's nothing we can do about it. Happened for a 10-year, and we've settled that, missing $5 million if it is that. So thank you, Mr. Poole. And Mr. Gombos.
Thank you. I did not come to talk about money. That should be refreshing. I want to reach back in history all the way to Saturday and simply say thank you for standing up. And I yield the balance of my time to anyone on the board.
Oh, let me start in. Big chance. Any of the commissioners want to talk about Mr. Commissioner Bernard?
Well, I think one of the focuses the county has taken for a while is to make sure that the veterans, first, they know they have benefits, but many of them do not ask. Why they don't, I don't know. But we need to reach out and ask them to ask. It's not asking for help. It's something they deserve. They earned it. It's similar to Social Security, I guess I'd say. I'll tell you, I'll be pretty upset if Social Security ain't there the day I retire, since I was 11 when I started paying for it. But veterans, risk their lives for this country. And when I started the Veterans Committee, I did that because I met this gentleman who lived outside homeless in Milwaukee, and none of us knew what to do with him and how to help him. And until I got to the county and started learning about this stuff, I didn't know. So the other purpose is to educate the public that there are resources. There is a place we can help. And that's the other idea. So the community was invited, and so they would know, well, oh, the county does this. So that was one of the purposes behind it. And the other is to say thank you. Thank you for your, risking your lives to make this country better.
Commissioner Savas.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. I know you were in the Air Force. No, you were Navy. That's right. You were a Navy pilot. We met on Saturday. That's right. So I would have liked to have seen better attendance there. I know some people showed up there thinking it was a stand down and seeking some help that we weren't prepared for. And I thought the attendance could be better. And whether we market it differently, but there was a decent turnout. I'm pleased about that, but I think we can do better. Was able to talk with a number of people in regards to all different levels of service. I know the Ken Craft with the VFW, they do a lot of work and outreach to try and help a lot of folks. And I know that each of my colleagues here are dedicated to try and find ways to help them and get them the services that they've earned. I know we always emphasize the word earned, and again, I appreciate your service.
Commissioner Schrader?
One of the things that we have to attend to and work on is the workforce issues for returnees. A number of the folks are underemployed, and they have, because of their service, logistical abilities and training that they are now skilled up for better paying jobs, whether that be a lot of times in public safety or emergency services. I know fire and police love to have veterans. Platt Industries tries to hire as many veterans as possible because they are a logistics company moving things from A to B, and the military knows how to do it. So one of the things that has to happen is we've got to be cognizant of the fact that when people come back, not only have they served, they've often coming back with no jobs, or they're underemployed. So we work with the workforce, the WICO Board, Workforce Investments Council of Clackamas County, with veterans returning as one of our key components. One of the stories I remember, and why we got involved in this, when I was the commissioner the last go around, we were visiting businesses, and I went to a business, computer software business, with Dean Shelley Perini. At the time, she wasn't the dean at Clackamas Community College. She was working with us on economic development. And these were a group of young guys from like 25 to 35 who had served together in Iraq. And what was intriguing to me, I went to learn about the business to see what we could offer them as an economic development opportunity. But they were kind of the band of brothers going on there. And we started to talk about what it was like to them to come back, and the fact that one guy said, yep, I drive down the freeway, and I'm still looking for bombs, still looking to get, and he's like, I'm like, whoa, there is. And the reason the business did so well is because they worked so well together, because they had, you can't understand what people go through unless you've done it together, and I can't pretend to understand that, but that was like a light bulb. And I think that was one of the reasons why we started to do the hire vets first and make that a priority for the county. Because all these folks in Withicum were getting deployed, coming back, and we weren't really even aware. They're like a huge base in this county. They've got the Army Reserve, they've got the Guard. The Guard's going to be heading out now to do the cleanup in Afghanistan, and it's probably one of the most dangerous deployments that they'll have to face, because cleanup, that's, what I'm talking about, yeah. Nobody's watching their back out there, so we got to be ready. And so that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and my war was Vietnam, and I didn't want to see, all the commissioners here didn't want to see folks coming back treated the way those troops were treated. So that's kind of the...
Now look what you've started. You've yielded your time to the commission, and we're eating it up, and we still have two more. So you can please sit there, Justin, but do you want to say anything real quick?
If I may.
Yes, quickly.
Of course. I feel welcome back here in Clackamas County.
Oh, good.
Good.
And don't let anyone say this county is not veteran-friendly, because then we're going to have to talk. And I don't feel like talking anymore.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Justin. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Gombos. Just to clarify for the folks listening, on Saturday, the county sponsored what we call a stand-up, and it was originally intended, planning had gone into this for months and months and months, to be a stand-up for the families, for the children and the spouses of the people who served, to let them be aware of the services if they need any, and hopefully an outreach to the spouses who served. And the original intent was to focus on the family first and then have ancillary benefits available. I think if we do it again, we're going to plan it in a different manner. But I was sure heartened by all of the groups who showed up, willing and ready to offer any help. I mean, it ran the whole span. There were veterans groups out there that I didn't even know existed. And it was really kind of nice for me because I was able to relate service of my uncle who was in World War II, my father-in-law who was a Marine. And it was just really nice. And I was thankful I was able to give a speech, as Martha spoke as well. And it was just heartening. We are exploring ways to do things better because Clackamas County is one of the most proactive counties in the state of offering veterans, and we have about 32,000 veterans currently in Clackamas County. So events like this, although we wanted more turnout, is a learning opportunity for us and our staffs to figure out what to do as we move forward on this, and any suggestions out there from the folks are always welcomed, and thank you.
Commissioner Bernard.
So I actually have two things about two speakers, but one's really short. Our administrator, I visited the VSO, suggested that the administrator ought to come down and sit down and he'll tell him what he does. He's going to do that. And, you know, if they weren't so busy, a lot of people probably should do that, visit the VSO just to find out what they do. The other is nothing to do with this. It has to do with Les's comments about the park. Actually, they get 50.5382 per thousand at NCPRD. See, this is our staff list.
52 cents?
Yeah, 54 cents.
54. All right.
But that is only for maintenance. The rest of the money comes from SDCs, and the $4 million, was it 4 or 5? 5 was for capital expenditures. So the rest of it all comes from SDC, system development charges, when a community develops. So there are other examples of parks districts in Washington County where they substantially support their parks district through the general fund, and that they're also building a park in that area for unincorporated Clackamas County, unincorporated Washington County, for the benefit of unincorporated community out of their general fund. So there are counties that put a lot more money into parks districts than we do. Thank you.
Mr. Gambos, I happen to know you personally, as some people don't know this, but Mr. Gambos was good friends with my son as they were growing up, and so proud to say that this veteran has slept on my couch before after eating a whole bunch of my refrigerator. But I will say thank you for your service, and for those who, I guess there were some rumors circulating from one of the friends of the candidates who said that Commissioner Smith and I weren't even there, but we were. Commissioner Smith was a keynote speaker.
It was a keynote.
I was hiding in one of the aisles tying silly balloons for excited children, and some older teens too were having fun with that, but we were there, we care. And Mr. Krupp, I'm glad that he's sitting down with the VSO, talk about how we can improve services, but as Commissioner Schrader said, we are all very pro-veteran, and we will show it in the near future. Thank you very much for your service. And we have Mariana Moore and Mac Woods. Now, I was just telling a story about a young man who was a young man who slept on my couch, and now we'll meet a lady who sat on my lap. I have been a Santa Claus at the Gladstone Senior Center for 26 years, and probably for the last 20 that Mariana Moore has been attending that, she had no idea whose lap she was sitting on. But she well knows now. So welcome, Mariana Moore and Mac Woods.
Now you're outed. So, Mariana Moore from Gladstone. Yes, it was nice to hear about the event Saturday, and I think, I don't know, something was miscommunicated, I think. I was thinking I would go, but then as I read it, it sounded more like it was just for families of the vets to me. And so I don't know how you could, get more people, but I know I'm glad it was a really good thing, and the vets sure need it. So I'm back to the library for Gladstone, and the unincorporated area held this meeting. And Mr. Ludlow was there, and Mr. Savas was there, and we were really glad to see you, and it was well attended. And I think, you know, we're looking at how we go about doing this, and with the responsibility on Gladstone, which has a very low value in the town itself as far as raising tax money, and they've already voted against it. And so we have a long way to go, I think, in coming to a conclusion of how we're going to support what was voted, you know, in 2009. And it really wasn't clear to either party, I think, at the time, that Gladstone would have to take this over. And because it could have gone to Milwaukee or somewhere else, and our city council at the time just came up, and the citizens didn't know we were really connected into this until they got ready to spend $10 million. So I'm looking at what's going on throughout the county and how things were handled in Happy Valley that still isn't concluded, and the richest probably spot in the county, and we're struggling. So that, and then the opportunity that came up in Sandy, where Sandy has the outreach to the, let's see, what is it, Hoodland, the Hoodland Library. And that's quite a little distance in there. But it seems to be working. I talked to someone at a lunch who is up there, and it seems to be working well. And I'm wondering if it can't be something like that Oak Lodge could still keep a facility and Gladstone could oversee it or something. I think we have a long way to go before we're going to be ready to settle this. And I'm hoping that you will continue to cooperate with us, because it's an issue that, you know, it could be modified. The IGA could be modified. But we have a vote that, you know, we have the opportunity in Gladstone to vote on this. And so it's got to be something that's going to work for all parties. And I hope you'll continue to work with us.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
I was at that Gladstone Library meeting as well.
Oh, I missed you.
And, yeah, and there's a statement that came out of there that I found very troubling from one of the community members. I don't know whether to pro Gladstone or pro any of the other areas, but they said, well, if we don't make a decision, the commissioners will make a decision, and they implied that we would build it for them. And I found that very disturbing, because this commission has, I don't believe, any intent on building a library for somebody who can't make up their own mind. And a point of clarification, let's go back a little bit when this library district was created. Gladstone received $2.5 million of taxpayer money in the form of cash. Mm-hmm. And how much money did they spend on a failed bond attempt? $1 million?
Not on the bond attempt, not at all.
They went through, listen.
The city spent that.
Okay.
The city
whatever.
spent that.
Hey, whatever. So
That's why
please,
there was the
Mary Ann, please
the
don't
vote.
interrupt. Can I
Okay.
finish my statement?
Okay. I just want you to be right.
Somebody used $1 million of taxpayers' money to go through that. Now the city or whomever has $1.5 million left. They spent $1 million and have nothing to show for it. That may be some of the problem out there. And to think, and you have come here time and time again, I just want to say, all the other 16 or 15 or 12 cities in the county were able to take their millions of dollars and do something with it. And it's perplexing to me that Gladstone and its citizens are still fighting each other over money that was given to them by a very generous tax-paying public. And I'm just perplexed by this. And so for thinking, and you keep coming back to commissioners telling us we need to revise this, and we have other people, the commissioners need to do this, and the commissioners, when in fact, it was a vote of the public. And now we have some people saying, we don't like the vote of the public when the library board thing was created. We don't like this. We were misinformed. We were misinformed. Well, you need to make up your mind and go forward with this, because commissioners are getting really wary Just so you know, really wary of people complaining to us about a gift of $2.5 million when $1 million was burned through and nothing to show for it, and there's $1.5 million left, and the people are fighting over it. So that's my view of this situation, just so you know.
Okay, well, could I comment? It was the city council that blew the million.
Never.
And that's when the people came in.
You know, as you're well aware, again, Commissioner Smith was there, and Commissioner Savas and I at the last gathering of 3 CPOs, and a really well-run meeting by Jim Martin
It was.
of the Oak Grove Community Council, and a great explanation by the city manager, Pete Boyce, I think it is, of Gladstone. And he laid out what the process has to be to adhere to the county's request of some kind of resolution, i.e. a ballot measure, but that would be known to us by the end of June so they can have a November election. Now, we are working in concert with them and hoping they can make that. But as I said that night, when asked, well, what if? What if the second time it fails again? And that means, I said, that there will be a variety of Plan Bs that we will develop and work with the citizenry to resolve the problem. We want to give Gladstone their time. They've had it the first time, sure, but they have the right and they need to try to come to some kind of resolution that involves all of the citizenry of the unincorporated as well as their city. It is tough to deal with an over 30-person commission or committee that they have in Gladstone, but we feel confident they will, and we will be ready should that one fail as well. So we're paying attention to it. We're trying to give proper representation and service.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. And now, I got it here. Mac Woods. Sir.
Thank you, Chair.
Former veteran.
Hello?
A veteran, yes.
I am a veteran. I've been there, done that. I don't go into great details talking about it. However, I was at the meeting last Saturday. It was a very good meeting, veterans. 2 days before that, I made a couple comments asking anybody here, Commissioner, to go next door over here to the building and find out how much they don't know about veterans. I'm referring to the veteran exemption for disabled veterans and taxes. This gift of taxes that I heard somebody comment, won't call no names out of respect, but them taxes are not gifts. It's people in Clackamas County, property owners, that's paying them so-called gifts, and I'm one of them. And I'm a veteran. I'm service-connected. I'm not going into detail about that. But why in the world can't any one of you that wants to know about veterans talk to the veterans that's been there? I challenge you. Find out how much you don't know. Then you can talk about veterans and you can help veterans. Instead of waiting till it's time to get elected, like nobody here, Mr. Schrader, that refused to talk to me in a position he could go to Salem and do something about the veterans exemption, which is a drop in a bucket compared to what we veterans have to pay out for taxes. Why don't you do it? If you want to talk about veterans, do it. Find out. Talk to me. I'm available. Yes, sir, Mr. Bernard, I asked you several times to talk to me and you refuse. I'd like for you to know more about veterans instead of telling sea stories, what we call them in the Navy, about what you don't know about veterans. With that in mind, I'm open. I'm an open book. I wasn't going to talk today, but I heard the comments about veterans. If you really want to do something for veterans, then zip your lip and find out about veterans from me or any other veteran and help the veterans before you get run for re-election, because the voters are going to vote. We know what freedom's all about. We've been there, done that. With that in mind, I'm done. Thank you.
You know, Mr. Woods, I read a signature, one of our county employees, everybody puts a little different signature, usually uplifting messages at the end of their email, and I saved this one for you. It's from Mark Twain. Mark Twain. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. I thought that fit
You got
nicely.
it. That's well said.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And the last card I have today is Cindy Lewis Wolfram.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow, Commissioners. Cindy Lewis Wolfram, unincorporated Clackamas. There are a pair of classes here. I believe they might be Mr. Woods. I wasn't going to speak to you today, but I have been listening. A couple things came up that I thought needed some notation too. The first thing, though, I have to say is that the stand-up was a program directed at the right people. We need to make sure we keep the spouses and children of veterans under our wings and in our hearts, because they were giving up a big part of their family when those veterans go out to serve our country. So we thank you for that effort, even if it wasn't as well attended as you would have liked it to be. I wanted to speak to you today about a story I read in the paper, and I've been following this story for several weeks now, and I haven't heard really anything in this meeting about it. I'm talking about a little kick-up with the hamlets and villages. It seems that it's been resolved, I think, that you're now allowing them to have their elections vote. And except for one person who is put forward by that hamlet not being allowed to run.
That's not true.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. That's the indication that I had gotten. But now that, it has been stated that there was one person that was not going to be allowed to run. And one person who was chastised for comments that they made. I think that one of the things y'all might want to take into consideration is that when you talk about following the Constitution, you need to follow the Constitution. We veterans put our lives in harm's way to protect your rights and the rights of every citizen in this county to be able to speak their opinion. Even if the place is an inappropriate place for that speech to occur, like I hear so many times at this table, people coming up and making political comments instead of talking to issues at the county. Those people are still allowed to speak because we have the right of freedom of speech here. And if you're going to protect it, you need to protect it for all the people. The volunteers and the hamlets and the villages and the CPOs do a great service to this county. And if they've spent $600 out of their budget and to try and ensure that their constituents within their hamlet took care of the problem that needed to be dealt with, I would hope that you would keep that in mind as you're considering the actions that you're considering for them.
Let me clarify something quickly before two other commissioners weigh in. We passed the slates, all of them. The only condition this commission unanimously agreed upon in regards to the Molalla Prairie Hamlet was the $600 that they used improperly would be returned to the county before they'll be able to have a vote. Now, let's make sure everybody understands what that $600 did. That is county taxpayer money, public money, available to the hamlet in order to advertise and carry on their businesses, okay? That $600 was used to file an appeal against their neighbor in the city of Molalla. That $600 was used for the appeal not in the name of the Molalla Hamlet Prairie. It was two individuals from that board and one that didn't even live in that district. That means that that was improperly used, and I think it's reasonable to say that that money should be returned. Secondarily, my comments. It is okay to have free speech, Ms. Wolfram, and I hope you know that. I allow it all the time here, and the commissioners encourage me to do that. But when a woman says that I am under investigation with the Department of Justice, that's a lie. When a woman says I'm up for ethics violations, that's a lie. And freedom of speech, you draw the line when a county representative, and that's what these people are, who wish that we automatically rubber stamp their name to go forward. They can call me a bully, they can call Tootie an idiot, they can do whatever they want. But when they lie about something so important like Department of Justice and ethics, then I don't think they should be on there. Now, again, I point out, we unanimously passed these names on because we will take a total and better look at the process and about the progress in these hamlets and villages later in June, as per our Public Government Affairs Director Gary Schmidt's recommendation, and we accepted that too. So we'll look at all that later. But that's the differentiation between freedom of speech and just an outright lie, and that's what that person had done. Commissioner Bernard, Commissioner Smith.
I've heard this freedom of speech argument used, and I had a constituent write me, and he says, I don't understand, are you limiting freedom of speech? And I said, absolutely not, because as far as I know, Susan Hansen is railing on with her speech more than ever, and that was not the subject of this. I think there are people who use the freedom of speech argument to try to oppose actions being taken by government when the government, sometimes, it's in the best interest of the entire society that actions be taken. And this is what I responded to him. I says, many people like yourself over time have used the freedom of speech argument as a shield for slander, lies, and illegal activity, of which was done with Susan Hansen. I submit to you that freedom of speech cannot be used when one wants to escape the normal course of a legally abiding government and threatens the peace of safety, welfare, and the community and its individuals. And earlier this week, and I have a prepared statement because I was waiting for this today, the Commission approved the forwarding of the names, just as Commissioner Ludlow said. We are not stopping any other. In fact, I originally made a motion not to approve Susan Hansen, and I had justification doing that because I had many, many letters from community people to exact activities. This commission is aware of her exact activities if indeed they read the constituents' letters. And I've raised concerns about this, and I still feel that the person using her role as chair of the Molalla Hamlet, she has since stepped down from chair but has still been on the board of the Molalla Hamlet, to promote a personal agenda that did not represent the views of the Hamlet she was previously elected to represent. And this is a very large population out there. This person seemed willing to destroy the Hamlet and the village program itself in order to serve her own interests. I clearly and consistently expressed my views that this commission should not be putting their stamp of approval on such a citizen who works carefully to demolish rather than build. And when we are elected, no matter how small or how large, I believe it is incumbent on that individual, number one, first, to do no harm. This person has done tremendous amount of harm, and I will add that I'm very disappointed in this Board of County Commissioners that they've refused to take action against her and therefore rubber-stamped her continuing activities in this manner. My colleagues disagreed with me, and it's their right to disagree. So I voted with the other 4 commissioners to approve this person only when and in they pay back the $600 because that is a misuse of funds. And by the way, this commission is held to the same high standard on using taxpayer funds. I raised my voice on behalf of the countless citizens of the Molalla Hamlet who came to me disenfranchised and hopeless with their hamlet. The choice is now up to these same citizens to let their voices be heard. If you don't like how the Hamlet Board is representing you, then speak up through the ballot box. Go to the Hamlet Board election and vote for who you want to represent you. It's now in your hands to determine the future of the Hamlet. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just briefly, Chair, I know our issues, on the first meeting here about a month ago were varied, and I think I'm proud of the work we did as trying to be stewards of the public's money, and I think that was my focus was the dollars and the process, and making sure that the people elected there are truly representative of the area. And I think our solution that we going forward will be towards making sure that there's a mailing and all the people that are in that area are notified and have an opportunity to vote, and making sure that they're representative. And it's also our hope that hamlets and villages and CPOs are being partners in the community, trying to make progress and do good things and work out their issues. And so, you know, we can't put that into the code, but that's our hope. So thanks for your comments. Chair, I have a 11:30 meeting I got with the business organization, so I'll be stepping out. I apologize.
All right, you're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, well, I thank you all for your comments because things sometimes do not get clearly enunciated through the various meetings that you attend.
Well, that
And
partly-
it doesn't seem to come to this meeting where the public expects to see what's happening. So thank you.
No, we don't mind repeating that. You know, Les Poole has observed that we run a different meeting now here, and that's not just my authority. It is the authority of the commission that they take to, and of course, the obligation to talk to people and to resolve things. We're well aware that these business meetings are one way to communicate. People should know that all of our sessions are recorded. Our study sessions on Tuesday, a lot happens, and Cindy was referring to that date and that time. And you cannot, unfortunately, always count on the media to tell you what really happened at that meeting, because you say sensationalism sells. And the fact of the matter is, again, my emphasis is it's a 5-0 decision that we go forward in this manner. So that being said, that is the last of the public comments. And we will go, Mr. Krupp, forward.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we do have two public hearings this morning. The first one is a public hearing on the proposed Housing and Community Development 2014 Action Plan. I'm going to invite Mr. Chuck Robbins, who is the Director of Community Development, to give you the staff report. Mr. Robbins.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Don, Mary. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about the program. The package you have in front of you identifies three things that need to be covered as part of our requirement to receive federal housing and urban development funds. First is a review of last year's performance of the Community Development Block Grant, the Home, and the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. A review of the proposed 2014 Housing and Community Development Action Plan, which is part of your packet. And then also an opportunity for citizens to testify on the plan or the county's housing and community development needs and performance. Did want to say that there is no action that the board needs to take today. There's just an opportunity to take information. We have the plan out for public comment. It closes on April 21st. After we receive all of those comments, we'll make whatever changes need to be made to the board, and we will bring it back to the board for approval on the May 1st meeting. Just as kind of some general information, bear with me, you have all heard this before, but I do like to get this in the record, that these funds all come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Clackamas County is what's considered an entitlement community, which means we do not have to compete for these funds, but based on your approval of our action plan every year, we are entitled to receive a certain amount of money from the federal government. I think it's really important to mention that the reason that we get the amount of money that we do is because of our great partnerships with the 16 cities in Clackamas County. We enter into intergovernmental agreements with them every 3 years that allows us to use their population in our calculation, which brings more money into the county that we can then spend, within the jurisdictions and in the unincorporated area. We will be beginning that intergovernmental agreement process again here in another month to see if we can get the cities to continue to participate for another 3 years. In front of you, you have in 3 handouts. One is the action plan itself, the public hearing notice, and then we have the 3-year funding recommendations. As I'd mentioned, I think in earlier meetings, we received about 45 proposals when we opened this up 3 years ago, totaling about $13 million in requests, of which we were able to fund about 5. We fund on a 3-year plan and a 2-year plan, so we're at the end of the 3-year plan. November of 2014, we will be accepting proposals for the 2-year plan, which would begin July 1, 2015. In terms of the performance, just kind of quickly, let me go through The largest fund source is the Community Development Block Grant. This is used for infrastructure, public facility improvements, public services, and housing rehabilitation. Last year, we funded about $3.9 million in projects. That was about $2.4 million of the CDBG funds, the federal funds, $300,000 of program income, which comes from the repayment of housing rehabilitation loans that we've made over the number of years, and then also leveraged about $1.5 million in funds from our partners. We require a minimum 20% match for any expenditure of block grant funds in the county. Projects that we finished, just kind of quickly, we did 40 ADA ramps in Milwaukee. We completed the Family Justice Center. The Kellogg Avenue Sidewalk Improvement Project was completed in Gladstone. And I mentioned the Housing Rehabilitation Program. We completed about 43 units this year. The home funds are used for the construction and preservation of affordable housing. We granted $500,000 this year, included about $100,000 of program income again, and we're looking to leverage over $5 million for one project. This is the Ecoiso Terrace, which is in Milwaukee. It's a preservation and rehabilitation project, 35 units of senior housing, and it's being developed by Northwest Housing Alternatives. The last fund source that we receive is smaller, but it's probably some of our, our most needed. It's the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, provides homeless services. We received about $142,000 last year, and primarily these are used to fund the 3 homeless shelters. The Annie Ross House, which is our family homeless shelter, Clackamas Women's Services, which is our domestic violence shelter, and then Springwater Group Home, which is our shelter for homeless youth. I think one of the most underreported aspects of the block grant program is the economic impact we have in our community. Working with HUD and with national organizations, we've created a model that allows us to estimate the number of jobs that we've created or retained over the last year. And so just based upon the expenditures I talked about, we created or retained almost 200 jobs last year, just from the use of these funds. So that gets us through what happened last year. So looking ahead, looking into the plan that you have in front of you, this is the annual implementation plan for our 5-year strategic plan, which is called the Consolidated Plan. The action plan identifies actions, activities, and specific federal and non-federal resources will be used each year to address the priority needs and specific goals identified in the Consolidated Plan. Talking about the CDBG program, as I mentioned, we're in the 3rd year of our 3-year plan. You've got identification of the projects that we've brought to you before in previous years. We're looking at just a little over $2 million this year, which is a decrease of 0.7%. So we've held pretty good with the block grant. For the home program, again, this is our affordable housing program. We're looking at almost $770,000, which is a 4% increase over last year. We've got 2 projects we're very interested in, hoping to get funded this year. One is the Sandy Family Housing Project, 56 units of new affordable rental housing for families and singles in Sandy. This is being developed or proposed by Northwest Housing Alternatives. We've also got a project called Town Center Greens, 60 units of affordable alcohol and drug-free housing in Clackamas, being proposed by Central City Concern. And then lastly, we have the ESG program, the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, looking at almost $170,000. That is a 17% increase. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but at least somebody in Washington is hearing that homelessness is a priority and is looking to provide some more funds. So with that kind of gives you an update of where we've been and where we're going, and would love to spend some time talking about the program, answering any questions.
Right. Go ahead, Commissioners. Well, Bernard first. He was first up there.
Well, actually, my question was about the food bank in Wilsonville, where they've already made a decision to partner and not use that money. What happens to that money? I assume you heard that.
Yes, I did. Those funds were set up in our system and obligated. We will go through that system, cancel out that money, and those funds then fall into what we call our unprogrammed funds category. And what we would do is we would turn around and use those funds on existing projects that have had over expenditures or they needed expansion in their budget, or we would look at emergency projects. Because we're in the third year of our 3-year plan, what we like to do is everybody likes their projects in the first year of our plan. And we're looking at probably about $2 million in next year's plan. So I like to hold this money and use that in the next go-around. So rather than funding $2 million, maybe we can fund $2.6 million worth of projects. So, and then it also makes it fair to all of our constituents, because I then don't use these funds in a discretionary manner. We put these funds out in a request for proposals, and then we have actual proposals that we can review.
Good.
Actually, I sort of have a follow-up on that.
Mm-hmm.
So Parrot Creek, do they apply? I mean, this is a county facility. We own the facility. And a nonprofit manages the facility. Is it appropriate for them to apply for a grant, or have they in the past? Or if not, would we reach out to them?
Actually, it is appropriate, and they have applied in the past. We have spent a lot of block grant funds out there in the years doing rehabilitation of their septic system. I think that we rebuilt their dormitory, and we have funded activities in their master plan. I'm looking through the plan right now, and I know that there's one in here. Oh, there it is. It's number 12, page 2, which is the youth shelter care expansion. $150,000 that we'll be using to construct a new 3,150 square foot dormitory out there.
You know where the rest of that money's coming from, Chuck?
Pardon me?
You know where the remainder of the money for that expensive facility would be coming from?
I have no
Since I
idea.
think it's $150,000. You have no idea?
I have, at this point, let's see. No, actually I don't. There is a requirement for a match. And before we enter into that agreement, we always figure out exactly what that cost is, so they know what their match requirement
Is that 20%?
It's a minimum 20%.
And I think the public needs to know how long these community development block grants are out there waiting to be used, and is there a limit?
Yes. Our plan includes 3 types of funding timelines based on the project. If it's a public improvement project, streets, sidewalks, something like that, then we say 18 months. We want to, from the point when we enter into that agreement, those funds should be expended in 18 months. If it's a public facilities project where we're building a new building, 24 months, just because it takes longer to go through that design. And then if there's acquisition involved, we go 36 months, because it takes us just about a year to do the acquisition. And then you put on the 24 months for public facilities.
Exactly. Commissioner Smith.
Last night at our town hall meeting, there was a lady who, her issue was transitional housing for victims of domestic violence. And she thought the county needed more housing for that, and we probably do. Is there any type of that housing available that people could apply for through the community block grant?
Well, we don't provide housing at community development. What we do is fund the construction of that type of housing.
So what I'm asking is, if somebody had an interest in out there and listening, they could apply for that.
Absolutely. So if they were interested in developing transitional housing for domestic violence, definitely that is an eligible activity. If they have questions about what's available already, then I would suggest they call the Clackamas Women's Services.
Well, she did she does volunteer for them, I
Okay,
think.
because they're kind of our leader in terms of providing housing for that client group. And I know that they do have some transitional housing
Well, they
units.
do, but they mentioned that it wasn't enough, and, you know, it's never enough. What we try to do as much as we can, and it's never enough. My second question for you on, several questions came up last night about affordable housing. So in the future, for these, well, not community block grants, does it look like the federal government is going to cut back on the allocation for this?
That would be our home program, and right now, the home program this year looked at a 4% increase. I think that pendulum, you know, which swings back and forth in funding, is swinging our way on affordable housing. So I'm at least optimistic that if we don't receive minimal increases, at least we'll stay flat.
Well, that'd be good.
Commissioner Schrader?
One of the comments I'd like to make, and I want to thank Chuck, because we were at the National Association of Counties together, and I sat in on the, I serve on business and community development, and one of the things that the National Association does is to keep addressing at the federal level that these funds are extremely useful, they have tangible outcomes, and when you look at the sheet, and this is all public record of exactly where it's going, it's very clear and very, you know, whether it's sidewalks or housing, and so I want to thank you for helping me as a commissioner, because we continue to go to our delegation saying, do not defund CD, community development block grants, because their outcomes are tangible, and it's something you can hold up and say, yes, this many people are housed, this is what we've built, and this is what's available. In terms of the Sandy issue, I've noticed here it's called Sandy Workforce Housing. It was a property to construct 56 units of new affordable rental housing for families and singles in the city of Canby. Let me emphasize here, it's workforce as well. One of the things you want to do as we work to get people to get jobs is to make sure that they have access to affordable housing so they get that continuum. Hence, it's business and community development at the national level, that there is a workforce piece to this as well. My question, one quick question, is on page 5 of 8. There's another interesting thing, and it says county-wide, funds will be used, multifamily rental housing, funds will be used for the construction of new housing projects in the pre-development stage, affordable renting housing for large and small low-income households. That's for 2013 and 2014. Where is that is that in process? What's going on with that? Because we have a shortage of affordable housing.
We do, and HUD requires that we budget 100% of the funds that they give us, and particularly with the home program, we don't always know what housing projects we're going to receive applications for, or more important, what projects will receive the additional necessary funding through the state's notice of funding availability process. So this ends up being kind of a holding area where we put the money saying that this is going for the construction of affordable housing, and then once we get an application and we know the funding's in place, we amend the agreement so that we can actually identify the specific project that we're going to fund. I think I'd mentioned earlier Sandy Family Housing. The other one was the project in Clackamas, and it was called, bear with me one second here, Town Center Greens by Central City Concern. So that would be another project that these funds would come out of.
And so it's that partnership between the nonprofit housing folks who want to help with our inventory capacity of affordable housing, as well as private sector individuals who see this as a duty or something that's valuable to do.
Absolutely.
That's the partnerships. Okay.
And it's important to know that, you know, we don't, the county doesn't receive any accolades if we don't spend this money. You know, if we don't spend it, we lose it. So, you know, my goal is to ensure that we budget these projects for housing activities, affordable housing projects that will be going forward. So we work very hard to make sure that we get good applications and kind of keep things in the pipeline.
Commissioner Bernard?
I actually just want to comment that I have to leave by 12, so I hope we'll get through this.
Oh, good, okay.
Oh, including commissioners' comments? I doubt that.
I'll make them short if you let me first.
Well, we got this public hearing and another one, so
Yeah.
probably not, but we'll see how we do. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to open the public hearing on this matter and ask the following people to come forward. Now, if I botch your name, I really apologize for that. Monica Lodeline. Certainly it was. Lodolini. And Patricia Aguilera. I hope that's close. Aguilera. Okay, thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us here today. So my name is Monica Lodolini. Actually, I do live in Gladstone, so those issues earlier, I understand the background there. But I'm here representing teen parents and their housing issues or the lack of housing that's available to them. So I'm a board member with Madonna's Center. We are a Milwaukee-based nonprofit 501c3 serving all teen parents in Clackamas County. We currently serve on average 150 teen parents a year and 175 of their children. So I am a director of community advocacy on the board, and I volunteer in the office. And every Thursday, we receive phone calls coming in from teen parents, and often they don't have a place to live. They don't know where they're going to stay. Maybe they're doubled up. They're couch surfing. The problem that we find is that when we participated in the 2013 point-in-time homeless count, and we did survey teen parents, and we counted 13 homeless teen parents, and that data was submitted to the county. And when the data was collected and put into graphs and charts for us all to look over at the monthly COC meeting, they weren't counted as teen parents. There's not a category for teen parents. So those parents were either counted as single adult parents, which they're not, or if they're pregnant, they were counted as unaccompanied youth. The problem with that is if they're 16 or 17 years old, they're not eligible for the services in Clackamas County that single adult teen parents would be eligible for. So they're not getting served. So they're being counted as a body, and there's funds that are going to those programs, but they are not eligible for those services if they're under 18 in most cases. And if they're counted as an unaccompanied youth, well, what happens when their baby's born? A lot of the programs designed to serve unaccompanied youth aren't going to be the right fit or going to support them as a young adult trying to be self-sufficient if it's designed for a teenager. So part of what's going on is I'm the facilitator of a project that some teen parents that Madonna Center have served. You know, they're a few years older now, and they have a teen parent housing solutions project, and they're trying to raise awareness in their community with other young parents and, you know, our local government, you guys. And we're just expressing the need for housing. We don't know exactly what that would look like. Madonna Center has some ideas. It sounds like there might be a future opportunity with the block grant monies. Maybe something could be created, but somehow programs in existence need to bridge this gap, or a new program needs to be created to help serve teen parents.
Mr. Robbins, the miscategorization, I guess I think I didn't use your exact word maybe, but maybe I did, of teen parents, specifically, let's call it the 17-year-olds. Do we have anything to say about that categorization?
Not when when we have to report information to HUD, because HUD is the one that we're actually required to, is requiring us to do the point-in-time count, and then we have to enter it into a specific data system. So when we report to HUD, no, we don't. However, we have always in Clackamas County also maintained our own way of counting. And it sounds a little ominous. It really isn't. One, perfect example is this category is just because HUD doesn't capture it, Clackamas County can, and so we at least know that the problem exists and can look at providing funding for that when we receive applications, though HUD may not know it exists. Same thing happens with the homeless, and how HUD defines homeless is quite a bit different than the way we define homeless. Homeless is not defined as somebody, for example, who is couch surfing. HUD said that, that they're actually housed. We would say, no, they're actually homeless. If they're doubled up or tripled up, they're homeless, as we would define it, not as defined by HUD. So we have, the answer is, and my staff hates this, yes and no. Yeah.
Great. We do that as a commission a lot. Yes, it sounds as if, and I'm sure you are aware of the process that he has previously described, i.e. the application, certainly the acknowledgement of need, and then the ascertaining as to when, in that 3-year cycles we have, according to the IGAs, when that money would be spent for something like this. It is great for us to hear about that problem, which frankly we don't hear that much about. And the numbers are very impressive, and it's one more thing that we need to address somehow. Thank you for your testimony. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for the chance to talk, first of all. My name is Patricia Aguilera. I am a teen parent and a citizen of Clackamas County for about 7 years already. I am a volunteer at the Teen Parent Housing Solutions Committee that goes to the Madonna Center with the Raise the Roof project. And we want you as persons of influence to know that we exist and to what the needs that we need to become self-sufficient. And I want to give the opportunity to County Commissioner Martha Schrader to ask any questions or any comments that
She's
she will
got her
have.
light on, believe me.
And
real quickly, do you work with Clackamas Women's Services at all? I mean, we're talking about women here, are we not?
We collaborate with them, we refer them if it applies.
All right. And Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm familiar with you, and I admire what you do, because you really walk your talk, and you not only provide housing, but you provide, and I think I've donated to you in the past, but I'll just have to check. But my suggestion is, we've got some pretty, really wonderful nonprofits in this county. We've got Clackamas Women's Services. We have the Children's Center that deals with child abuse. We have Family Stepping Stones, which is something you might want to know about, because that is kind of a relief nursery in parenting, so that's a resource you could use. And my strong suggestion is, and they've all partnered with us in one way or another, because government does partner with our nonprofit folks and our private sector folks to provide services. You really can't do it alone. It's the 3 sectors of what they call civil society: private, nonprofit, public. So what I would suggest is, if you get those folks, look up who their directors are, and start to talk to them so you can be part of the integrated services that we offer here for people in Clackamas County. Because what you do is provide a service so young women can have their babies. And that is, at least from my value set, and I suspect that all the other commissioners, that is extremely important. That is what we would like to see. But in order for it to happen, they have to have what they need to succeed as these young mothers. And of course, I have a new part for this, because I've got a little guy that's going to be, my grandson's going to be a year old here in April, and he's the joy of my life. And having a baby in your life is one of the most beautiful experiences you can ever have. So if you can follow up with that, and if you want to talk to, even come into my office, or I know a lot of the directors, I'd be glad to help facilitate those kinds of conversations.
Thank you both for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, the next two are, and here we go with my pronunciations, Valerie Oshbacher and another Martha. Martha, any other Marthas out there? Yeah, thank you. It's Martha.
going first? Valerie? Okay. I'm Valerie Ashbacher. I'm the board president and one of the co-founders of Madonna Center. And I did have something I was going to say, but I do want to let you know that we're well aware of the services that are available in the community for services that are available, and we do collaborate with them. Madonna Center has been in existence since 2005, and we opened our first office in 2007, and in 2009 we expanded our services and our capacity to serve. We have a budget of $100,000 a year at this point, and with that we serve, as Monica mentioned, over 100 teen parents and their children per year. We do know that housing is their main concern, and if they don't have stable housing, they can't go to school, they can't get a job, they can't take care of their children and provide for their children. We know the services, they know the services, we refer them to the services, we collaborate with the services. They don't have a place to live because, I guess because people don't know they exist, or they know they exist and they don't care. I don't know what it is, but for 10 years we've been trying to address that solution, and it became more apparent to us during the 2013 count that we needed to make them more visible. There are 3 of them here today trying to make themselves more visible who serve on that committee. They want you to know that they exist. They want you to know they're couch surfing. They represent they represent the probably 1 or 2 a week that call our office. So think about, just count the number of weeks in a year, how many call our office saying they have no place to live. One of the main problems is for them to become eligible for services is that they're supposed to be under the care of their parents as minors, but the parents have already abandoned their responsibility towards them for a number of reasons. Drug addiction and incarceration and that sort of thing. I think that you're making economical decisions for the county. Money would be better spent on serving these teen parents and making sure they're stable and that they actually finish their high school diploma and move on to college. We supported these girls that are here today in doing that, and they are in college today. But without support, they're not going to get to that place. I actually wonder now, I'm questioning whether what we've done has been a justice to them, because they might have been better off to just fall between the cracks and become more needy and at age 21 resurface as drug addicted and mentally ill and in domestic violence situations, and then there are services for them.
Oh, I don't think I like that choice, but yeah, that's the one of the alternatives. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Martha McLennan. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Housing Alternatives. I think what we've heard from the folks that have testified today from Madonna Center really helps to illustrate the need in the community and the passion of the providers to help to meet that need. At Northwest Housing Alternatives, we receive up to 200 phone calls a month from folks who are at risk of eviction or who are already homeless, and we can help maybe 8 or 10 of them. So the need is really quite phenomenal. I think collaboration is an important component, but the resource is the core. I have a frog. The other thing I want to say is that some of that is a very systemic and large level. While Chuck has talked about some of the increase in federal resources we've seen many years where those resources are shrinking, and we also see expenses rising at the same time. Thank you. We're seeing right now construction price increases of up to 17%. The boom of housing that's being built right now is causing a labor shortage. That labor shortage is allowing the labor prices to escalate. So, we're getting pushed and pulled in lots of different directions. The other thing that I saw in the media lately is that over 60% of the jobs filled in the Tri-County area in the last 12 months paid a wage that was less than 60% of the area median income. So 60% of the area median income is the target for affordable housing. So if 60% of the new jobs filled in the last year have a wage of that or less, you can see that we have an increasing housing problem, an increasing shelter problem, increasing homeless problem. So I do want to appreciate the staff and community development for the work that they do in getting the federal funds out there, blending those federal funds with local resources, state resources, private resources, and maximizing those as much as possible. We have a big challenge in front of us.
Thank you both. Now, the next card, I'm sorry, did I get you both? I thought I did, yeah, thank you. And the next one is Larry Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. On the good news side of things, I want to report that the Boring Water District, which I represent, I'm the manager of the district, has had 2 community development block grants in recent years. And I want to thank Chuck Robbins for doing a fantastic job working with us. I admire his job, is the way he does his job, and the job that he does for this county is fabulous, and I can't speak enough about him. He's really a great guy to work with. The district is looking in the next round of funding to possibly get funds to repair an existing well house that's out of its time limit and needs to be replaced. The last 2 grants that we had from the Community Development Block Grant went real well. One was putting a water line through downtown Boring, which increased fire protection and helped circulate water through the downtown area. And the other grant was to rebuild a well that the LDS church folks had built for their church out there and gave to the district, and the well did not function properly, and so we got into a lot of sand issues, and the community development block grant funding helped us correct that issue, and today we have got the well back online and pumping, which saved the people of the district a tremendous amount of money and kept us from having to raise rates significantly to do that. So the grant funding that we have gotten has helped the district and the people of the district by helping to keep the rates down and making it affordable for the water. Otherwise, the rates would have went skyrocketing, and people just cannot afford the water bills out there because of the fact that it's a small district. We've got about 750 customers, and we're spread over about 5 square miles, and it takes a lot of money to run that type of infrastructure and keep it maintained. So anyway, my hat's off to Chuck and the job that he does, and I just wanted to say that it has been a very successful relationship, and I'm very happy to report that. The other hat that I'm wearing today is I'm also on the vice president of the Boring Station Trailhead Park, and the Friends of the Park have spent a lot of time and money helping Clackamas County to get that park built. I raised probably close to $500,000 in in-kind and fees and services that were donated to the park for the sewer, the water. The water line also was put in by Community Development Block Grant funds, and we were able to put a fire hydrant near the park and supply the park with irrigation water and water for domestic uses. We were able to get the electricity in. We got that donated and got that in through PGE, so we didn't have to pay $32,000 for that. So we put a lot of time and effort into that park, and we're very proud of it. The one thing I want to say is the park this year would like to possibly get some community development grant funds, if possible, for some playground equipment. We've got a fundraiser going, and we started just as of last night at our meeting, and we're probably got around $10,000 already committed, and we're trying to raise $50,000. So if we can maybe get $25,000 or a 50% grant of that money, we would have enough to put playground equipment in the park, and that would finish the park, because it's really come a long way, and it looks great. So.
Thank you, Larry. That was a great report, and glad to hear the staff's doing a great job for you. And Boring.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there was a gentleman who evidently had not turned in a card, but some people thought he did, so I'll call him forward. His name is Doug Dixon.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Doug Dixon. I'm from West Lynn, and I'm here to to ask you to support the CBDG grant so that we who use the Adult Community Center in West Lynn can have some more space. We are very, very crowded. We have lots of classes and activities that are offered daily there. And we're reaching the point where if one more person comes into a certain class, somebody has to leave if they want to be included, because there's just not enough space. That holds true for exercise classes as well as classes like wood carving. And you don't want to have a whole bunch of seniors crowded together wielding knives. So we are partnering with the City of West Lynn in trying to put an addition on our facility. And we're hoping that you will see your way clear to approving those funds. I'm sort of representing the 300-strong membership of the community center.
Good.
We have fundraised for the last 4 years, trying to get enough money to complete this project. We have some funding already from a previous grant application, and we just need the rest that we've asked for to begin. The additional space that we're considering will be useful to not just seniors, but to the city itself, because the city rents out the facility, and the city uses the facility for meetings and other activities. So we aren't the only group that's going to benefit, but we'll be one of the main ones, we think. Without the CDBG funding, the project really wouldn't be possible. So I will keep this mercifully short and say that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Real quickly, Mr. Robbins, sorry, just to clarify. So you made an application, or your organization did, and it was, we have a lot of applications for a lot of money. Where is this particular one on the list?
2014.
Commissioner Bernard's got it.
It's in 2014, item 15, West Lynn. I totally support it. I don't think we're going to pull anything off of here.
Okay. I come here with a group of seniors too who would like to support it as well.
Better not pull it now. I don't want to take on seniors. No, everything that Mr. Robbins has put forward is online and available to the public, and we will abide by this should we pass it here a little further on.
Okay, I would encourage you to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close the public hearing and announce again, there'll be no board action on this item today. It will come back for board adoption at the May 1st, 2014 regularly scheduled business meeting at 10 a.m. And now, Mr. Krupp, the second public hearing.
Yes, this second public hearing involves approval of the supplemental budget for Clackamas County, and I'm going to invite Diane Padilla, our budget manager, up to give you a staff report.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Diane Padilla, the county's budget manager, and I'm here to request approval of some supplemental budgets. These are supplementals that will each increase the fund involved by 10% or more. There's a public notice required, and that was published in the Lake Oswego Review on April 3rd, and then there will be a hearing required today. The first two items have to do with making an additional debt payment. We have an Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank loan. And in the first portion, the Happy Valley Clackamas Joint Transportation SDC Fund is recognizing SDC revenue and budgeting to transfer it to the countywide transportation SDC. Then this second fund, the countywide SDC, is recognizing that transfer and also moving funds within its own budget from contingency to debt service, which will result in the ability to make an extra payment on the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank loan of $535,245. The next items all involve funds that are inactive as of June 30th last year, but they have residual fund balances left, so we need to recognize the funds in the budget and budget to transfer them to the new applicable active funds. The first set are all debt service funds. We previously had a separate fund for each debt service issue. Realized we did not need to. We can adequately track the different issues, but if we consolidate them in one fund, it's more efficient for us and it saves auditing costs, so that's what we've done. But we need to transfer the residual balances of the from last year's individual funds into the new consolidated fund. And the total of all those transfers of fund balance would be $394,355. And then similarly, we had a community health fund that is no longer active, and the residual balance in that fund is $2,081,967. So we need to recognize that and budget for a transfer so that it can then be dispersed to the currently active funds that are carrying on that work. The total of all these supplemental budget requests would be in addition to the total county budget of $3,546,812. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and request approval of those budgets.
Commissioners?
No questions.
Commissioner Schrader?
Just no questions, but just a comment for the public that's here. This is actually an example of good budgeting, because what this is, we all know, colleagues, is that kind of loop back, check back with where funds and things are going. So a lot of times we do it right. Okay, Jim, I'm done.
No, that's fine. I guess, we talked about, and one of the things the commissioners did last year was they restored the contingencies and reserves that we so desperately need to continue to operate this county. And couched in a way that I think citizens can understand that, you mentioned the dollar figure of over $3 million, and that is coming out of contingencies or reserves?
No, it's not coming out of anything.
It's adjusted. I see.
In the first instance, where we're making the debt service payment, yes, some of that is coming from contingency within an SDC fund and transferring so that to a debt service category so the payment can be made. But in the other cases, we just have inactive funds with fund balance left that isn't budgeted. So we need to budget it, recognize that we've got it, and budget it, authorize the transfer so we can send it to the new and active funds doing the same work.
So there are contingencies from other contingencies, not general fund.
That's a good point, the SDCs especially. So it's
none of this is general
really
fund.
Basically settling the ledger, so to speak, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Commissioners, other questions, clarifications? Otherwise, we'll open the public hearing. All right. Open a public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Oh, that's a good one. All right, we close the public hearing and ask what the wishes of the commissioners is.
I move we approve the resolution for our Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and budget reductions for fiscal year 2013 to 2014.
Second.
The motion been made by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Schrader to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Bernard.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Ludlow.
Aye, passes 4-0. And it's time for the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay. The consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County Department of Human Services, Aging and Disability Services Division for options, counseling, and gatekeeper services. Approval of Amendment Number 1 to an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority for the Adult Mental Health Initiative. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of a joint property investment agreement by and between the Clackamas County and Clackamas County Development Agency for property located on Southeast Capps Road and Southeast 114th. Under Finance, a resolution for the approval of a Clackamas County supplemental budget less than 10% for fiscal year 2013-2014. A resolution for the approval of budgeting of new specific purpose revenue for fiscal year 2013-2014. A resolution for the approval of a transfer of appropriations for fiscal year 2013-2014. And a resolution for the approval of the submission of the County Assessment Function Funding Assistant Grant application for fiscal year 2014-2015. Under Elected Officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. Under the Library District of Clackamas County, a resolution for the approval of a supplemental budget less than 10% for the Library Service District of Clackamas County for fiscal year 2013-2014, and the Development Agency approval of a joint property investment agreement by and between Clackamas County and Clackamas County Development Agency for property located at Southeast Capps Road and Southeast 114th. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Commissioner Smith?
I have a question for Diane Padilla. On the motion that I read, it said a supplemental budget greater than 10%. However, under Finance Department, on number 6, it says approval of Clackamas County supplemental budget less than 10%.
Yes, the less than 10% is just, has less requirements. We don't have to hold a public hearing. It can be handled
This
as a
is
consent
different?
item. Yes.
We have two different items here then.
Yes, we have.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Doesn't relate to the consent agenda, Tootie. I think we're done with you, are we not?
It's the exact same language,
Oh, well,
except for greater and lesser. So I would see how somebody out there, if they're really paying attention, could get confused.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
excellent job.
Second.
Commissioner Bernard has cut to the chase and is seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernard?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 4-0. And now it's time for the county administrator update.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I actually have quite a few items, if you would bear with
We're
me.
real patient.
May I jump in and go?
Oh,
just
yes,
real-
sorry.
just really
Commissioner Bernard
quick?
has to leave, and so we're going to excuse him after he gives his report.
Actually, I'm just going to say something really briefly. I was going to go to a marijuana summit up at the mountain, and I discovered today that it's closed. It doesn't make, I mean, it's anti-marijuana, not that I'm either, but I think it's improper to have a function discussing something like that and be closed. So I'm not going to go to that. I was going to take some time off from the commission work to go up to that, but because it's closed, I'm not going to do that. So I just wanted to let people know.
Good point.
All right, thanks. So I've got to take off.
Commissioner Bernard is excused.
Thank you.
All right. And now, Mr. Krupp.
All right, well, let me roll through these for you. So I wanted to let you know I've got a number of good news items. One is our juvenile department has selected some 10 youth leaders through a competitive interview process to participate in helping other youth through what's called the Green Corps Fresh Start Program. And it's a youth employment training program where young people will learn job skills in the area of production and sale of vegetables and wood, bike repair and maintenance, barista customer service, and cash handling. And the county partners with the Oregon City Farmers Market and the Oregon State University Extension to put this program together. Very neat thing for our young people in the county. Then we will have some 200 students from Kraxenberger Middle School in Gladstone visiting our Tri-City wastewater treatment plant so they can learn about wastewater treatment. They'll learn about how dirty water is cleaned and then discharged into the Willamette River. We do these tours in order to help students so they can become informed ratepayers in the future. So, and at the request of the chair, our emergency management department is leading a 3-month pilot program where we will have some 50 county employees participating in an emergency preparedness training program. And the idea is these are employees we're going to have to call on and count on in the event of a disaster. And we want to make sure they've done everything they need to do in order to be personally prepared so they can focus their time and attention towards serving the citizens if we do experience a disaster event. They're carrying out weekly activities such as putting together emergency kits and notification documents and those sorts of things. So it's it's an experimental program we're trying it this year, and the goal would be to see how that goes and probably replicate it in future years. I am going to start with my updates, doing some follow-up, because sometimes we will hear concerns that are raised here at the podium during citizen comments. And the topics will interest me, and I'll be motivated to go and take a look and find out and learn a little bit more about it and then report back. And I'm glad to see Mr. Bates is here, because I did follow up on a concern he raised regarding electrical permits and burglar alarms. One of the concerns he raised was that it was taking a week or 2 weeks or so for electrical permits for burglar alarms. What I did learn about that was the ordinary and typical turnaround time is actually, these are the types of permits we can actually issue over the counter. So if there is a specific situation, I'm happy to follow up with that specific situation to find out what took place and then report back with regard to that. The matter may involve electrical permits for fire alarm systems, and those typically require a plan review, which may take several weeks to do under the building code, and that may have been the circumstance that you had heard about. But I'm happy to follow up with the specifics. I also followed up on a concern raised by Mr. Kevin Johnson regarding possible cost overruns involving the original trolley trail construction project. And at the time, I didn't really have an answer for the board. I did learn that that particular project, which was in effect opened in 2012, but they're still filing out the accounting and project details for that. What I have learned is that while the final accounting is still pending, it does not appear that the project is out of budget. It is within budget. While the county is a contributor, it's actually the Oregon Department of Transportation that's the project manager. But it looks like all the numbers are coming in the way they're supposed to on that. We still have a responsibility to install the signs out on the trail. We have some temporary signs out there, and I am aware that our Department of Transportation and Development has produced a sign design. They're in the middle of production of those signs for ultimately the installation of the permanent signs for that trail. But right now, it does not appear that that particular project is over budget, or there are cost overruns in that project. And again, I've got two more, if you don't mind. Barbara Kemper and Cindy Lewis Wolfram spoke last week about continuing concerns about the composting site at the Clackamas industrial area. Concerns raised around wastewater materials are being brought into the site, and that those materials then polluting the river. Of course, in this case, we're the landlord more than the regulator, and we do have an interest as a landlord in assuring that there's compliance out there. I did learn this morning that our staff, in working with Oregon DEQ, which is actually the regulatory agency responsible for what takes place there with this type of activity, that there was no appearance of pipe and no apparent drainage into the river. We do have a site inspection scheduled this afternoon out there. We've worked with the tenant on doing that, and that will take place. While we don't have a regulatory role, we do want to make sure that the property complies with all rules and regulations. So we're
A quick question on that. I thought for sure, I heard from Mr. Dan Johnson, we do not own the site.
No, this is what I understand, the site that we
Oh, I'm sorry,
lease.
we're talking about
Yes.
the composting site?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I thought we were talking about the sewage transfer
Yeah,
thing going
yeah.
up there. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I had to separate those two. Yes, we own that site, I
Yes.
agree.
Yeah. So it does appear that things are copacetic at the time, but we will learn more from the site inspection later today. And one other thing I can share with you, and that is that I learned a little earlier today that our application for a parking lot to serve the community corrections staff in downtown Oregon City has been deemed complete. Staff are working on the specific requirements with the city staff. I've been advised that their prognosis is we can expect permit approval in about 2 weeks' time. So that's good news.
Wow.
Excellent, good. For those who don't know, we are involved in an arbitration with the peace officers to provide parking in downtown Oregon City. If you've ever been there, it's very challenging. You may get to park if you're lucky, and then you got 2 hours. And when the 2 hours is up, you cannot feed the meter. You must move 2 blocks away and feed a different meter. Judge Herndon, who is our presiding judge at the courthouse, has issued his opinion about the parking in Oregon City. What we want to do is be good partners and take a lot of our correctional officers off the streets and put them in a lot much closer to our building, and this is directly adjacent to the building with the road separating it. I started working on this in January of last year, and it's a slow process. I identified the site. The commission agreed to go through the purchase. It was a decent price initially, but when you have to bring it up to somebody's standards, that's where the price goes up. So I should let you know that in the event we are successful and the construction part is done, it's still going to take months, many more months, maybe even up to half a year to complete this project. With that said, look at everybody's bundled up here.
Chair,
You can't leave. You
I'm-
can't leave.
I know, I'm late for a Founders Clinic
Okay, so
luncheon, so
it's really
I'm not
quick.
going to say anything, okay?
Commissioner
sorry, I
Schrader,
forgot
if we
about
lose
that.
the third one, we're done.
That's
So,
what I thought.
Commissioner Schrader, Commissioners, communication.
I'm done, okay.
Man. Commissioner Smith, is they putting pressure on
You
you?
can go.
No, I'm
you
done.
can't. No, don't say that.
Oh, you
Look
can't.
at Mr. Madcore. He's
I'll
not
wait
looking
till,
happy.
I'll wait till next week.
Yeah.
We had a great town hall last night, again, as has been already stated, and I just want to note that and tell everybody to have a great week and drive carefully. And one last thing, whenever we take money from the general fund, for example, as to roads that was mentioned earlier, it must come from somewhere. Now, I've heard some testimony today where, and Martha often says this, budget time is prioritization time. That means if we take money from the general fund and give it to something else, where's it coming from? The things I've heard today, if I was going to throw money, and I love my roads, if I was going to throw money at roads or helping teen parents, guess which one I would help? I'll leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much today. This meeting is adjourned.